Welcome to True Wellness with Dr. D, the podcast where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. D, and each week I'll bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Let's get started. Hello, my health seekers. What if I told you that your bank account has less to do with dollars and cents and everything to do with your emotions? What? That financial struggles aren't just about money, but about the unconscious beliefs and patterns that are running our lives. Today, you guys, I'm really excited because we're diving deep into the emotions behind money with financial expert and author Julie Murphy. And if you've ever felt stuck in the same money cycles, overspending, under-earning, or just feeling insecure, this conversation is about to change everything. Get ready to unlock the emotional blocks that are keeping you from true financial freedom. You don't want to miss this. And welcome, everyone. It is another episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. Hello, Julie.
Hello. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited about this interview because, how often really do we come across, a certified financial planner who's like, hey, let's talk about why these things are happening with your money.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your emotions and your trauma and your past and your energetics. It's so rare, exactly. But it's so right on point with what we talk about here, right in alignment with the True Wellness framework. And so I'm excited. You guys, Julie Murphy, she is a Chicago-based certified financial planner and the founder and CEO of JMC Wealth Management. She holds an MBA from the University of Notre Dame and has she's got 25 plus years of experience in financial services. And she's helped thousands upon thousands of clients in the United States and abroad, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And she is adept at all things that are critically important to financial and life planning aspects. But most importantly, you guys, her book, The Emotion Behind Money, and the premises behind that, I think, are what sets her apart from everybody else. So, Julie, we've got to understand. People are scratching their head. They're like, "Well, what do my emotions have to do with money? It isn't the money
besides everything."
Yeah. The money issues are driving my emotions, Julie. How can my emotions be driving my money issues? How did you get involved in this area? How did you realize that this was an issue?
Well, I started to realize that my industry encompasses a lot of really smart left brain logical people. Yes. But there's this huge disconnect between the general public and financial planners or people in the finance industry. And I realized this when my first book came out, really, because I can speak in front of 1,000 people in the general public. I'm like, finally, somebody in the financial world that gets us. And then I speak in front of financial planners and they're going, oh, isn't this cute? But this is irrelevant. Right. I'm like going, what? Like there's this huge gap between those two worlds. And that gap is shrinking. Since then, Harvard Business Review has come out with, oh, there's this thing called behavioral finance. And I'm like, no kidding. But that was like 8 years later after I started really doing this kind of work. Because I started to realize is that we can know in our minds what the smart financial thing to do is, but we let our emotions override our logic all the time.
Oh, yes.
And we do things like we create what I call spending hangovers. It's that credit card bill you get in January after the holidays, right? Yeah. Like we go and we buy a car. Like we would purchase something very differently if we handed over $6,000 versus paying $6,000 for, whatever, furniture, a used car, whatever it is, right? We process differently if it's sliding a card or if it's cash, because we don't internalize our money decisions very easily these days, and everything's on autopilot. And that's what positions us all to be very unlucky in terms of making sure that you're authentically creating the financial life that you really want to have versus just victim to how fast it's moving and how much we're pigeonholing ourselves into pretty much financial jail. That's what our whole debt system is set up to do. And so it's fascinating. And what I started to realize is that when I wanted to satisfy people more than the clientele versus my industry, my business took off. So I was like, well, follow the energy. I follow where it's expansive. And my industry didn't understand me whatsoever. But now they're like, how is she building this business? And how did she get that big? And now I'm speaking on platforms. Like just 2 weeks ago, I spoke in front of 2,000 financial planners. And they're all like, oh my God, how does she do this? And I'm like sitting here going, I've been doing it for 20 years. You know? And it's fascinating.
It is. I think we're so stuck. People think of financial services. They think of accountants. They think of like that rigidity in the structure. But you're right. Like everything comes from somewhere. And if we are literally in the driver's seat of our life, because we are, whether we recognize it or not, or whether we want to be responsible for it or not, right? Then yes, we are responsible for our financial situation as well, for better or for worse.
Yeah, we are the creators of our lives, and your financial reality today is exactly your creation. And a lot of people will say, no, but my employer, but this, but you have to understand, like, what we do as humans is that when we are not showing up authentically in our life. So for example, if you're going to a job because it gives you a great paycheck and you're like, but you don't really love the work you're doing anymore, what you're doing on the sidelines is you're creating what I call financial leaky containers. And at some point, if you don't make the shift to something that is more expansive and more alignment with your authentic self at that age, at that moment in time, you're eventually going to be let go. You're not going to get the pay raises. You're not going to get the bonuses. You're not going to get the promotions. Why? Because your heart is not activated. And the human heart is actually the biggest magnet on the planet. And yeah, and you just have to look at that research from heartmath.org. And they have all that research. And it's like, if we are not activating our hearts and then bringing in our smarts, creating that coherence between our heart and our heads, we are creating financial leaky containers. And those show up in, like I talked about the job, but they show up in divorce. They show up in, businesses that don't do well. Like, I think when people are let go of their jobs or their businesses fail or their marriages fail, I'm going, excellent.
Yes.
That is an awesome opportunity because you were just smacked across the face and go, you're going the wrong direction. You're not in alignment with self. So get busy getting in alignment with yourself. Absolutely. And people are like, is this a good thing, Jewel? I'm like, it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. It reminds me. So just a little bit, of my background. So I'm a functional medicine practitioner, right? But I didn't always start that way. In my earlier time, I worked corporate strategy for a Fortune 500 company, and I got my MBA from NYU Stern, and I was doing that thing, and yet I wasn't happy and I wasn't fulfilled, and I knew that this wasn't it, and I was doing what I could do to climb that ladder, right?
So many are.
I had the golden handcuff salary, and I was still the girl who was coming into the office and bringing everybody, their bags of raw vegetables to snack on and their echinacea tea. And I had like the drawer of all the different stuff. And you're right, at that point, like when we went through the whole layoffs back in the early 2000s, and I was in there because I was in a vulnerable place in the the beginning of having children and such. Sure. And it was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't awful. Maybe this is here for a reason, and that catapulted what I knew inside was where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be doing. and everything changed. I no longer had to justify, my MBA expenses, right? And hold on to this job where, there were nights I literally slept in the office, completing work. Like this was not the life that I wanted to live.
Well, and I find that so many people, when they're doing those kind of things, what they're doing is they're trying to prove that they're enough or that they're worthy.
Yes.
And you're never going to feel enough, and you will
Yes.
never feel worthy by working more and giving up more of yourself. You're trying to accomplish something that never, ever crosses the line. Because the only way to feel enough is to actually take a step back, choose to be your authentic self, feel the feelings of fear that come up in that transition, because all that is your subconscious mind going, oh, when you were a little girl, little boy, this thing got jammed in here.
Yes.
And those feelings are ready to be felt, because I believe, and you may know this better from a doctor's perspective, but I truly believe that our emotions, when stuffed in our system energetically, because emotions are energy in motion.
Yes.
And when they get stuck, they layer up.
Oh, yes.
And then that layering is actually what creates disease in our bodies. Because
Absolutely.
I always say that we work things out and we act it out, and we do it through our health, our money, or our relationships.
Yes.
And so I align with people like you, because I'm going, oh, if I fix their money stuff, it's only a matter of time before it comes up in their health and or their relationships, if they're not actually showing up authentically in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you say in your book, money is an emotional mirror, right? Tell us about that.
Well, money is actually just the result of you aligning with self. So when you're plugging into the world from a place like, if you're building your career on stilts, if you will, doesn't have a solid foundation, because you're doing it for all the wrong reasons, because you're building it off that trauma or rejection from before you were 7 years old. You're creating these leaky containers. Well, the world outside can only mirror back to you who you are in the middle and how you're showing up in the world.
So true.
And so people will be like, well, but my employer or my boss and my spouse and my kids, like, no, this is about, you need to hold healthy boundaries for yourself. You need to say no. You need to walk into that office and say, I'm worth this pay raise, and here's the reasons why. And it's not necessarily, what people have to realize, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're leaving your job when you say no, that you're not going to pay me this little or not give me the promotion. What it is you're choosing to shift the energy and saying, all you have to do is be willing to and start looking for another job. And if the job that you're in is meant for you to stay there, those people around you will step up and you'll get the pay raises. But you have to be willing to actually have the courage to have those conversations.
Yes.
Because then you're changing the playing field.
Yes.
And we are so powerful beyond our belief. And we just have to decide to use that power.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that, because you said a really important word. And I know this is something else that you talk about, is beliefs, right? And unpacking those money beliefs, because we have them. We all have them. I mean, there's stupid stuff that falls out that I, say to my kids all the time. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just said that thing, right? Oh, can I take it back? And then I've got to correct myself. And like, what have I implanted in their little brains? But
I know, right?
Those money beliefs, because they do get formed early on. And sometimes we walk around unaware that we're even being run by a certain belief about money.
Totally. And you have to remember, you have your parents' belief system. So not only do you have your mom and dad, but then if you're in relationship, then you have their mom and dad's belief system too. And oftentimes those are a battle. That's why at my wealth management company, JMC Wealth in Chicago, what we do is we actually give 2 risk questionnaires to clients. One measures the right brain and one measures the left brain. Because often the smart left brain logical side will say, I've been educated and I know at this age I'm supposed to be a growth profile and I'm supposed to have so many stocks and so many bonds in my portfolio. But their emotional brain is sitting here going, I'm ultra conservative.
Right.
And what's in those 2 things is your belief systems.
Yeah.
And especially on the emotional side. And so I want to uncover. So let me give you an example of this one. I was meeting with a client yesterday, and he was completely avoiding filling out the right emotional brain. And he comes from a family background that dad is very left brain logical and actuary, and and mom is this emotional being. And so here he's both, right? And he's having this disconnect, and even to the point that he's avoiding filling out a questionnaire to actually manage his money that's based on him and not everything outside of himself. And it's his belief systems of, like, his dad was an actuary. So his dad was non-emotional. He was very straightforward. It was like, this is what it is. And he's trying to be that, but he can't be his dad. He can only be himself.
Yes.
And here I'm telling this 56-year-old man, you've got to own who you are.
Right.
And manage your money accordingly, not because of what mom and dad and the community you grew up in and the schools you went to and trained in that brain of yours.
Yes.
Because it's all entrainment, and you have to break through that entrainment and all those belief systems to actually align it with what you really actually truly believe, as opposed to what you've been wired to believe.
Yeah, it's so true. I know these are some of the things that you work on in your impact course, right?
I do.
How do you go about doing that and helping people break through that?
So when you're stuck in your belief system or your money patterns, the compelling reason to change is the first step. It's always dreaming the new dream. It's like, what is it that you want to create in your life? If you're the creator of your life, what is it that you want now at this age and at this period of time? And people will always say, well, I'd like to do this and I'd like this, and this. But then all of a sudden they're in their heart, they're telling you what they desire, and then they go to their brain and then they go, but all the reasons why they can't do it.
Yes.
And I'm always like, no buts, no coconuts, go back to dreaming. Because if we actually always looked at our current reality, financially particularly, most of us would be like, oh, I should have done this. Oh God, why did I do that? Oh my, there's a lot of shame, blame, guilt, and judgment around our money decisions.
Yes.
And that's why looking at your reality, I don't look at reality in the process of my 6-week course until week 4.
Imagine 4 weeks. 4 weeks out of your 6-week course. Like, we're almost done here. We're not even looking at reality yet.
Because I need you to map out. I want you to set your intentions. I want you to be clear of what those limiting beliefs are. And I want to bust through those beliefs. And what is it that you really want your new belief system to be? And that's matching your intentions, because your intentions are just your energy. It's your vibration. Yes. And then we write down what it is that you really want to create in your life. And then once we look at reality, then we start to build. The last 2.5 weeks of the course is building the bridge from the reality to the dream.
There is a bridge. We just have to build it.
Right. And be okay that you're in process. Like, it's okay to be in process. It's okay to give yourself a life raft. It's okay. And I'll use this as an example. So like when I looked at my reality after my divorce, I had created all this debt because I had all these legal bills and all this other stuff. And I was like, I had built up a lot of money for my kids' college. But at one point, because all of my short-term money was used on attorneys and they were starting to want to pull from our retirement accounts to pay more attorneys, I'm like, no. And so for me to be able to get out of some of the credit card debt that was created in that bridge, I had to liquidate some of my kids' college funds, something that I don't believe in.
Right.
That kicked up a lot of shame.
Yes.
And everything. And I was just like, you know what? I just need to get through this piece so I can get to the other side, so I can stop the bleeding.
Yes.
And it put me in a better mental and emotional state to be able to do that. And since then, there's more sitting in my kids' college funds now 7 years later than was there before.
That's so funny.
Sometimes you have to allow yourself. That's part of looking at reality, is that you have to allow yourself to be where you're at and just be like, all right, I may not like it, but okay, it is what it is. Yes. And that acceptance piece creates so much emotional space so that you can create the new. But when we're jammed up with our old emotions, you're not creating anything new because you're vibrating in your old stuff, and all you're going to create is all your old stuff.
Yeah, that's true. It's that well-worn path, and if we stay stuck in that well-worn path, it is what it is. I love what you said, because when we actually come to that space of acceptance, we give the opportunity for things to shift, because the more we resist things, the more they persist. And I have a mentor who he taught me, and it's like stuck in my brain, no matter what it is, you say thank you. Right? So it's like, look at this really crappy situation, thank you. But in the thank you, you start to realize, like, okay, wait a second, there are some things I can learn about myself. Like, oh, look what the little voices inside my head are saying about this.
Right.
Now I can deal with those so that I can raise my vibration, raise my frequency, and then ultimately create more change.
That's exactly it. Because there's the low vibrating emotions of sadness, anger, competition. When you're in that place, like, let's give a really raw example today.
Yeah.
50% of the population does not like who the president of the United States is or the administration. 50% is okay with it.
Yes.
And I definitely don't want to talk politics, but I'm telling you, those that have negativity going on in their emotions right now, they are shutting down their own personal financial world. Yeah. Why? Because your nervous system leads up to your pineal gland, and that's your lighthouse and the vibration that you're putting out to the world. Absolutely. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying you need to go inside. Yes. And stop going outside, because your inside is what's going to create your new. So it's about, like, I am reading, like, one of my clients, she's like, well, I don't even know if I want to stay in this country right now. I said, okay, well, if you don't want to stay in the country, where would you go? She goes, I'd go to Italy with all my cousins because my sister's not around anymore. My dad's gone. My mom's in a nursing home. I can't remember who I am. And I just want to go to Italy. I'm like, okay, when are we going to go to Italy? So she took a sabbatical from work, and she's living in Tuscany right now.
Lovely.
And she's living her best life because she had to unplug from all of the stuff that she is just pissed off, pardon my French, about what's going on in the administration. And I helped her plug into a world, and we financially figured out how to do that. So now it's a completely different ballgame. And here's what's even funnier. She's a physician. And what she realized when she was there is she wants to move to more functional medicine and culinary medicine. I
love that.
She wants to unplug from being in the medical section that she is today, which is completely different.
Beautiful. Send her my way.
She's being called to this other place, all because she was ticked off at what's going on in the country right now.
Good.
And what a better place to learn culinary medicine than Italy. Like, they're great in the culinary arts, right?
Yes.
And you don't know what is going to be that next step, but you just know what makes you giggle. You know what makes you feel good, to give yourself that gratitude, thankfulness that she has a place that she can go take this time off, right? That she has an employer that will still pay her part of her income while she does that, takes that sabbatical, right? Because there's reason and purpose for everything.
Yeah.
And when we can start to realize, going, oh, this unrest in me is a place that something is in me that is trying to heal, and something needs to come up. So just go do what makes you giggle, because that's in alignment with your heart. And then that will create more of that gratitude, joy, happiness that is sustainable, because you're surrendering into being more of you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's perfect, because that literally what we're doing is raising our vibration. And today, I think most people they're stuck in fear. I mean, I have people who come in, they're looking for functional medicine, and they're like, oh, but I can't invest to take care of myself and my health. And I'm like, but if you don't take care of yourself and your health, where does your life go? You don't end up with a life. So how do we figure this out? Right. But the fear is so real, huge. especially in today's environment. So how do you help people work through that fear, especially when it comes to money?
So I'll go back to the example of the gentleman who, I was talking about, his dad was the actuary and everything.
Yes.
So what I realized is like he was watching the market every day, watching his account value, because he's got this threshold. It's like, if my money goes below this, like I'm just gonna like blow up. And I was like, I said, some emotion before you were 7 is trying to come up and out. Yes. You're distracting yourself by looking at the market, and it's this rate of return, and it's this, and it's the administrative, it's all these things outside of himself. I go, here's what I need you to do. I gave him the assignment. For a week, I told him, do not look at your account. Do not look at the stock market. Nothing. I need you to stay in the fear so that fear can come up and feel your emotions. And the wife just starts going, yep, that's exactly what it is, because you've been snapping at all of us and something's going on inside of you that just needs to get out.
Hey, this is Dr. D. I just wanted to remind you that you can get started on your true wellness journey. Go ahead and check the show notes and grab a link to the True Wellness Checklist. Now, let's get back to the episode.
And I was just like, I said, if you don't feel those emotions, I have seen this so many times, I guarantee you, you will get sick. And I told him a story about another client that I have who was very successful in his professional career. And he came at me like a bull in a china shop one day with some of my colleagues in the room. And then after he left, my colleagues go, well, I think we met the litigator today, not the mediator. And because I was trying to hold this container because he's processing his emotions, right? And he's lashing out. He's projecting it to other people. So anyone listening right now, if you are in a place or you see somebody else in your life who is emotionally projecting, which means going out of their mouth and thinking it's everything outside of them, that's actually something that is triggering them inside that's trying to come out and be felt.
Yes.
And this particular mediator, 2 years later, he got diagnosed with cancer. So I know when people are lashing out like that, emotionally projecting, if you don't feel those feelings, if you don't get it out of your system, you will get sick. I've seen this so many times. Just like you said, I tell people all the time, your best investment is in your health.
Right.
That's why I want them to align with what makes them happy. I'm like, we'll figure out how to shift your job. We'll figure out how to shift your money. But if you're not happy, you're getting busy dying as opposed to getting busy living.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. There is a direct connection. And what's the what's the book? The body The Body Keeps Score. That's a really good book that goes into that. And I'm also just building on top of what you're saying too. So I'm a huge fan of Dr. Joan Rosenberg, who has a book called 90 Seconds to a Life You Love. And all her book is about is, the Rosenberg reset, which is taking that 90 seconds to whatever that emotion is and actually sitting in the emotion so that you experience it, right? So that you right.
Exactly. And if people understood this more, they would do it more. And I will tell you, I am the quintessential, like, I am 11 brothers and sisters. I didn't grow up with any money. And I will tell you that scarcity of a 3-bedroom house with 14 people living in it, eating fried bologna and spaghetti all the time and tuna casserole, right? And it took me a while to realize I just sucked it up and kept plugging along because that's what I did in my childhood. And when I started to realize that sucking it up and just shoving those emotions down, that doesn't fix anything long run.
No.
And even after my divorce, I knew I was sad. I was angry. I was so angry. And I know anger is deep sadness. So I was walking around my house, tapping my heart going, why am I sad? Why am I sad? Why am I sad? And then one day I had the biggest cry in my life and I just sat down because I felt like I failed at my marriage. And I know logically I did everything I could have done.
Sure.
But it was just like I had to feel the sadness because I had never failed at anything in my life because I sucked it up and I moved on. Right. And then when that failed, I was like, boom. And all I needed to do was feel that sadness. And it was interesting how everything then opened up after that.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to acknowledge it. We have to it's not even just acknowledge it and feel it. I think there's also the space of learning from it. We do a lot of neuro-linguistic programming and stuff in our practice, and it's always about too, like, okay, what can we learn from this event, and how does it, what's the universe trying to tell us? What's the message, so that we can hear the message, learn and grow from the message, and then totally up level as a result of that.
Yep. And once you can start to recognize it and stop being the reactor to everything that's coming at you in your life, and be the observer and then respond. But even for you ladies out there, if you're really in your power, a queen does not need to respond.
Love it.
The masculine energy, the doer in all of us, wants to respond. But if somebody's coming at you, you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to say anything. You can let that other person just sit in there. One of the best traits, if you look somebody who's really in a state of grace, they just hold the space for whatever arises around them.
Yeah.
They don't have to respond.
Right.
And we don't realize that that's an actual option these days.
No, we don't. Everyone's reactive today. And it's all the, the flipping through the phones and the quick, everything is in 2 seconds and the phone dings and, oh my gosh, we better go hear the phone. And it's crazy, right?
My son in the car yesterday is like, Mom, somebody's trying to call you. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm driving.
He goes, why don't you care? I go, because I'm trying to spend time with my children right now, and I'd like to have conversations with you, and it's irrelevant to me what's coming in on my phone.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, can you tell that 10-year-old just got a phone in December because he's like,
quick. Yeah. Yep. So true. We're being conditioned in this way. So, in what you do, how do you find that people grow the most from their money challenges? Because I think that's the thing that scares people the most, is the challenges. Like, oh my gosh, I've got this big, huge bill coming that I wasn't expecting. I haven't planned for it. I'm going paycheck from paycheck, perhaps. Or how do you move them through that and past that?
So one of the most important things is you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself in the fact that you have the financial reality you have. You only have that. So wishing it to be something else or beating yourself up for it, just stop. That's first and foremost.
Yes.
Once you dream the new dream and you start to go through like, okay, I think I might be able to do this. Then it's about creating a system that positions you to be lucky. And people say, I'll tell people, here's a great example. I love online savings accounts. Love them because you can name your financial intention. So,
there you go.
So for example, like Capital One's got these, American Express has them, Discover has them. There's all kinds of them online. And I tell people, well, if you own a home, you need to put somewhere between $300 to $350 a month into a house maintenance fund. So over a 20-year period of time, you can replace the windows, the furnace, the air conditioner, all the appliances in the kitchen, washer and dryer, hot water tank. And they go, I don't have an extra $350 a month.
Yes.
And I go, no, you don't. But when the hot water tank goes, are you not going to replace it so you don't have hot water? And they go, well, no, I'll get it replaced. I go, and typically what do people do? Well, they put it on a credit card. And then they figure it out. And now you're in financial defense as opposed to financial offense.
Yeah, that's so true.
And you're depending on somebody else to be your bank and control your life as opposed to you staying empowered and being your own bank.
Right.
So I tell people going, okay, well, your next pay raise, we're going to put on the agenda that a portion of that next pay raise is going to go into a house maintenance fund. And they're like, but it's only $25 a month. I go, I don't care.
Something.
That's where we start. So less goes on a credit card when the next thing happens.
Yes.
And eventually with every pay raise, we eventually get to that $350 a month. And you could do that with, you just finished paying off your car. Well, most people are going to buy another car. Most people. Now make the payment to yourself. Don't absorb it in the rest of your expenses. Create a car fund. So you're paying that $450 or $500 a month into that bucket after you've paid off your car. So now you've got $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 now to buy the next car. And these are simple cash flow things that, first of all, are not taught in our schools. And that's a whole other different program.
That is.
But it's how you shift from, operating from financial scarcity and defense to playing offense and being empowered. So many of us, if we have any debt, and even if it's good debt in our mortgages and stuff like that, you still have to wake up every day, and you can't go in the flow and live in the now and the present moment if you have to pay for yesterday's choices.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that's why people are super happy the day that they pay off their house.
Yes.
Because it's this burden that has just been lifted.
Yes.
It's this same thing with the car, same thing with student loans. Like, you just feel good. But we have not proactively, collectively chose to stop that cycle.
Right.
And that's what I call like financial jail. Somebody else is owning your life. And that's how we start to get back to a place of, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, I always talk about, you do these things with newfound money, whether it's a tax return, a pay raise, a bonus. If you have debt, you split it in thirds. You know, a third goes to your debt, a third goes to spending. Sometimes that spending is a house maintenance fund. Sometimes it's vacations, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's on groceries or a combination thereof.
Sure.
And then the other third goes towards building up your wealth.
Yes.
If you don't have debt, well, then you split it, the new money, in half. You take half of it and you put it in the spending bucket, and half of it you put into the wealth building bucket. And the reason we do it in that manner is that I've learned over the years that if I do it any other way, I'm going to at some point hijack your nervous system, and then you're contracting, then you're on your negative emotions. Now you can't manifest because your nervous system is hijacked.
Yes, that's so true. You're back in that negative frequency.
Right.
Speaking of which, I mean, since we're kind of talking about assets and debts and all of that, I know you're a big fan of the connection between our self-worth and our net worth.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that, because I think that, you know, is one of those underlying things that plays for people in their minds and then can keep them stuck.
Oh, there is no doubt. So, I mean, it's no different than like when I was attracting clients. It wasn't until I had $1 million until I attracted $1 million clients, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to attract the promotions and the opportunities for exactly who you are.
Beautiful.
And the biggest challenge is that most of us don't know how to hold money in abundance. We've become income affluent, so we have cash flow.
Yes.
But we've not figured out how to be asset affluent collectively.
Yes.
And this is apparent. This really came to light in 2008 and 2009 for me, when I had clients that actually worked for General Motors. And if you recall, General Motors actually declared bankruptcy and got bailed out by the government. Right. And I was like, isn't this fascinating that every single one of my clients who work for General Motors are fiscally dysfunctional cash flow wise, and so is the company that they work for.
Interesting. Yeah.
So much of the fact that it had to declare bankruptcy. So I sat there going, oh, we are all the company we keep, whether it's our friends, our family, our employers, our communities. So if you don't want to operate financially, like if you have friends and you all laugh about how you have a credit card debt, you need new friends. or maybe you're the leader to lead all your friends to a different reality.
Yeah.
But you are the company you keep. There are all these energetic cords between us.
Yes.
And everybody in your life is reflective of exactly who you are and the energy you're putting out into the world.
Yes.
And so when we start to realize this and go, oh, well, what is it that I want to create? And what is the company that I'm keeping? So let me take it off of money for just a minute.
Yeah.
My mom was an English teacher. And when I was writing my first book, The Emotion Behind Money, my mom said to me, she goes, you're writing a book. Because she remembers the fifth grader who was hell on wheels to try to teach a 5-paragraph essay to.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Right? Because I was way more left brain logical at that moment.
Yes.
And I realized going, oh, my mother is a crab in my bucket.
Yes.
Meaning that she was not really positive or supportive. Like, she was happy for me, but she's like, you're right. She would always say, how's that book coming along? Like, she was just like, her brain could not. So I made sure, I said, Mom, when I'm done with the book, how about I have you edit? She goes, oh, I'd love that. Like she was all over
it. Fangs are ready.
2 professional editors saw that book way before my mother did. And I did that because I wanted to stay in an empowered state. I was being divinely guided to write this book, despite the fact that English wasn't my major.
Right.
Right. And it's a bestseller. And so it's clearly I got through it. But for that moment in time, I had to shelve the conversations with mom about my book. She goes, Jewel, I only found 6 things in the book that you did. I was like, and those 6 could have just been opinion. One of them was actually something that needed to be fixed. And I just was like, man, so they could be people that you love and adore. But this happens to us financially too. Like if your boss in your company is saying, we don't have the profits, we're not giving raises. Well, if you want to live in financial scarcity, stay at that employer or go start to find a job. I helped this one woman who's an architect build her firm. And I said, if you are only strong as your weakest link, because what people do when they're fiscally dysfunctional, they go to their employers to fix all their financial cash flow problems. Mm-hmm. And they want raises, they want bonuses to fix their spending habits. That's all it boils down to. I said, you want people working for you who are fiscally fit.
Yes.
And so she chose to pay me to sit twice a year with her employees for 30 minutes to help them become more fiscally fit.
Wonderful.
And it was about half of her company was fiscally dysfunctional and they couldn't get out of their $30,000 of credit card debt. And the other half were fiscally prudent. And I then made suggestions to her going, have you ever thought of pulling credit reports for employees before you hire them? And she goes, what do you mean? I go, well, they're going to keep coming to you and think you're a jerk when you don't give them the pay raises when they overspend. And so started putting that in. Today, she has a whole firm and everybody is fiscally abundant.
That's beautiful.
And so she didn't fire all those other people. They actually naturally left because they didn't fit in anymore. So we have to watch the company we keep and what we're creating, what we're building. And it's that subtle.
Yes.
Including your spouse. Like if you're financially bailing your spouse out all the time, not a good thing.
Conversation.
It's probably something you learned that mom and dad did.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, like I kept telling my ex, like, stop spending, stop spending, stop spending. And I said, okay, this is the budget we have. You told me you can spend within this number. And he just never would do it. And then one day I get a call. I'm at the grocery store trying to get groceries and my credit card's not going through. And I'm going, I told you were going to hit the wall. You've hit it. Now you fix it. I'm not fixing it. And he was so pissed that I wouldn't just pay for the groceries. But I sat there going, I'm not carrying this for years on end. I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. You have to be my partner and work with me on this as opposed to against me. And so you figure out how to fix it. And he did. To his credit, he did. And then he came back later on and he apologized, going, sorry. But he just, when you're used to somebody else fixing it, every human being has 5 ways that they respond to stress. They try to fix it for other people. They try to people please. They try to control their environment and train other people to do it their way, or they disassociate.
Yes.
So those are 5 clear signs that you are in your patterning. If you are disassociating, trying to fix it for others, people please. And so at that moment in my life, I was deciding to not fix it for other people anymore. Because I was a fixer and a people pleaser.
Yes.
And when you stop doing that, one, your own fear comes up that people are going to abandon you and you're not enough buttons pressed and you are feeling not worthy. But then you're also able to stand in your power.
Yeah. That's the gift.
Mm-hmm. And then you're surrounding yourself with people that support more of what it is that you want to create in your life as opposed to being victim to whatever arises.
Yes. Yes. Well, and this, you talk a lot about, coming to terms with those emotionals and about how our emotional freedom leads to our financial freedom. Can you map that out for our listeners?
Absolutely. So again, financial freedom is all about, so you're doing what makes you joyful and happy and you're grateful. Those are higher vibrating emotions, which means that money is just the result of that. So more money comes to you when you are at higher vibration. If you're frustrated and sad and angry, you're shutting down your system. And so, again, if you're shutting down your system, then that no pay raise, no big tax return, no bonuses, no promotions. When you're in those low vibrating emotions, that's what you're attracting to yourself.
Yes.
So this is why people will come to me and say, well, which decision should I make, this or this? So in a practical example, I had someone I went to college with came to me and they lived in the city for a few years, and the parents are like, why don't you just move to the suburbs and then you're around family with your kids? And so then they did that. And then they were like, Jewel, it's killing us being in the burbs. I go, okay, you want to move back to the city? And they're like, no, what we've realized is we really love nature and we want to move where there's woods and hiking trails. And I said, okay, so they picked a state in the United States that they wanted to move to. And then I fiscally helped them do it. Now, since they've been there, first of all, they disappointed everyone in their family. Lots of guilt trip from the grandparents, right?
Yes.
But they have both gotten huge promotions, pay raises. They have more quality time with their kids, and they're completely out in nature on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they chose to be happy.
Yeah.
And they did something that was out of the box that most people from their neighborhood chose not to do. But it's what makes them tick. And so they said, well, is this the fiscally smart thing to do, Jewel? And I go, define fiscally smart. Because people are always looking for the smart financial decision.
Yes.
And the smart financial decision is the one that makes you giggle more.
Yes.
Because more money will come from that giggle and being happy.
Mm. That's so beautiful. I mean, that is a quote, right? The smart decision is the one that makes you giggle.
Because I categorize people financially as the poor, debtors, dreamers, accumulators, and then rich but empty. Because everyone who is poor, debtor, dreamer, or accumulator, they think that once they get those couple million in retirement, they're fine. They're set. They're good.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you that people get to that fiscal point and they go, I don't feel any different.
Yeah.
I'm not happy. And then I go, well, it's because they left their heart on the sidelines all along the way. They've built a life that actually is not something that makes them happy.
Yeah.
And so that's when I start to help people shift, like my client who's now in Italy. She could retire today if she wanted to, but she's not happy because she was putting up with a system that she knew she was done with for about 7 or 8 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And it just took the catalyst of this current presidential administration that ticked her off enough that got her to change. Great. Maybe that's what its purpose was for her life.
Yes.
You know? And now she's getting more in alignment with self because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this time and time again.
Yeah. I think we often overlook, we get, money's kind of like food. It's like we need to use it every day. And so we stop thinking about it in this way. We stop realizing the impact that it has. It almost like shows up then behind the scenes and we're like, whoa, wait, what's happening here?
Right.
And it's not until we give it this like step outside of it, like you said, take some perspective and start to look at, my gosh, like what the heck is happening?
Yeah, right. Know? And it's just like you're talking about true wellness. For me, it's about embodying real wealth.
Yeah.
And real wealth is being happy in your family life, your personal life, your career, and your financial life, because it's all interconnected.
Yes.
And if you're a workaholic and you've driven your career and that's in the center of your life, well, you just built a financially leaky container because half your money's going on divorce because you ignored your kids and your spouse in the process.
Right.
Right.
Oops.
Right. And money's not going to create that happiness. So you got to pay attention to what's really going to, like I helped one person's like, I leave the house before the kids go to bed or before they get up. And I come home after they go to bed. And I said, okay, what do you want to do? So we figured out how to buy a house that was only 30 minutes from the office, as opposed to in a commute traffic, an hour and 15 to an hour and a half. And then he started to be able to, you would have thought that man won the lottery when he could read his little girls bedtime stories.
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes.
And it was just that little piece that made a big difference. And that was just part of the bridge. Because then it was, oh, now how can we really, and they've bought the ranch now. They are now happy. They now live out in nature. Like, it's so interesting. Like, but you have to just allow yourself to think out of the box and going, I can have all of it. I
Yep.
don't have to have just part. I can have everything that makes me happy.
Yes. Now we got to just figure out how to do that.
Yes. And it's way easier than people think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I help people do through my 6-week course.
Yes.
Is I help them to help with that redesign and give practical steps of what you can do to get there.
Yes.
And that's what I think
impact, because it has an impact.
Exactly. And it's just about, again, at this stage in your life, what is it that you want to create? And then we just come up with a checklist and everything that you got to do to start to get yourself across that bridge.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
One step at a time.
I love it. So talk to me about, I always ask our listeners, what are 3 things, like your top 3 things that you would advise people so that they can really take the things that we've talked about today and make them practical, applicable, and actually begin to take on changing their life and their financial well-being?
Well, I mean, the first thing is I talked about it earlier. You got to dream the new dream. What do you want to create those parts of your life, right? And don't edit the list. Just put it down that it's a dream. That's the first thing and foremost. The second thing is to increase your awareness. You look at your reality because many people don't open up their envelopes, right? They don't look at what their bills are. They don't look at what the investments are doing. Open up those envelopes, put it down. Like if you have debts, I have a debt worksheet. You can go to my website, juliemurphy.com, download this worksheet, and it's so you can prioritize not only the debts and the amounts, but the interest rates and the payments you're making. Because I asked the question, what interest rate are you paying on your credit cards? Nobody knows that answer. Nobody. Right. Nobody. But it's about increase that awareness. So that's the second thing. Increase, whether it's with your debts. I also have a cash flow worksheet. That's the other thing. Just know where your money's flowing. And keep in mind, I do not call it a budget. And the reason I don't call it a budget is because a budget makes you feel like you're clamped down. Mm-hmm. And then emotionally, you're going to act out. I want you to decide how you want your cash to flow and you choose it. So you stay in a place of empowerment.
Yes.
And then I think the third thing it is don't forget to reward yourself along the way. Oftentimes I'll have a savings account bucket set up for just whatever, feed your soul, spa day, whatever. Like no matter what your situation is, do something nice for yourself. When you hit something that was a goal, reward yourself.
Yes.
Like I'll have people who work really hard in paying off their debt. And then let's just say they're paying, $1,000 a month towards that debt. The next month that debt is paid off, I'm like, what are you going to do with that $1,000 to reward yourself? And they're like, what? Like they're going, I have $1,000 to do whatever I want. I'm like, yes, you do. Like reward yourself for doing something that fed your soul to do more of that. Because when you reward yourself, you raise your vibration. It makes you feel good. And then you're going, I did do that. I patted myself on the back and I'm good. Right? And it's like, but we forget about ourselves along the way. We want to keep hitting the grindstone and beating ourselves up for everything. And reward yourself along the way. Very important.
Yes, I find our women especially are really good at just, nope, my kids, my spouse, everybody else, and they forget themselves. Yeah, but then it ties into the whole self-worth conversation. And then here we are back into this spiral. We got to like someplace say, stop.
Stop the insanity.
Yeah, literally stop the insanity. Well, I love this, Julie. I think our listeners have certainly gained a lot of insight. It is really refreshing to hear, a lot of times financial people, they're just like all about the numbers. You're like, well, wait a second, those numbers, they're all.
There's this whole other part.
Yeah, it's like, hey, new perspective, fresh perspective. Mm-hmm. And yet it's so valid. And it's so real. And if we aren't starting to look at things differently as you are, then we're not going to start to create different results. True. And so Now
Totally
our
agree.
listeners get to begin to break free. And tell us too, can you please share with our audience how they can learn more about you? I know you've got a fabulous website, or how they can buy your book. We'll have some links, of course, in the show notes. But go right ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. By all means, you can go to juliemurphy.com. You can also get all of my books on Amazon. I'm on YouTube, Instagram. Instagram is Awaken Your Wealth. YouTube is Julie Murphy. There are too many Julie Murphys on Instagram. Hence, I'm Awakening with Julie there. But yeah, it's about, we have everything and anything, no matter where you're at financially, we have something to help you along your way, from, free stuff to worksheets to online courses. I have a debt course on my website if you need help getting through that. It's just about, us really collectively helping each other out. And, I have a very successful wealth management firm. We manage over $500 million in assets under management. This is my give back to help the people at large. And wherever it is that you're at, we've got something to help you on your journey.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for the gifts that you are bringing out into the world. And thank you for all the lives that you are changing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And with that, everyone, we look forward to seeing you for the next episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. This is Dr. D reminding you to tune into your body, connect with what matters, and embrace the journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Be sure to grab a copy of the True Wellness checklist right in the show notes. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you for the next episode.